Alright, peace and blessings, brothers and sisters. It's your boy, Omni Amanashe, also known as Omni Omnis. This is OmniVision EDU. Welcome to another 360-degree cycles of love and light. Today we'll be shining the light on a historical literacy segment dealing with the Revolutionary War and Independence Day. We're going to be dealing with the sequence of events that led to the modern America that we know today and the world that we know today. So y'all fasten your seat belts, get ready, and we going on the ride. Let's do it. So the Revolutionary War is about a forcible overthrow of a pre-existing sovereign government in establishing a new systematic government, right? Now, most people believe that the Independence Day that we celebrate on July the 4th is about modern day America declaring their independence from Europeans in Britain. But what we come to find out is that the pre-existing sovereign government of Britain were originally indigenous sovereign blacks, okay? So they were not declaring their independence from their own people. They were declaring their independence from the indigenous sovereign government, all right? And like I said, a revolution is defined as a forcible overthrow of a government or social order in favor of a new system or establishment, all right? And that is the America that we live in today. This was criminally established, illegally established, from people who were already in charge and people who already had, sovereign rights, okay? So what we have to understand is that the founding fathers of the United States of America, as we were taught in school, George Washington, John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Alexander Hamilton, all of these guys were colonists, okay? So a colonist is a non-member of a government-backed group which settles in a new country, land, or region. Land claimed by colonists is usually occupied by another group of people, such as natives, right? People who are already there, all right? There's a difference from someone discovering land and from someone stealing land. These are individuals who pretty much are like illegal immigrants, right? Or you could call them illegal aliens, okay? These are people who have no citizenship, okay? They're not citizens of America, of the original 13 colonies, nor were they citizens of Great Britain, okay? They called them British subjects. They were not inherent to any rights, okay? So them declaring their independence is pretty much an illegal act, considering they had no inherent rights as citizens, okay? So the Continental Congress declared that the 13 colonies were no longer subject and subordinate to the monarch of Great Britain, which at the time was King George III. Now, King George III is often depicted as a European Caucasian, but so is Jesus in the Bible. And it clearly says skin of bronze and hair of wool, okay? But there is an authentic depiction of King George III, which is located in the British Science Museum of London, okay? And it is depicting King George as a Negro, okay? The man has dark skin and he clearly has an afro, all right? He was the ruler at this point in time when these series of wars and battles and conflicts was going on, okay? And so it's funny and ironic that Independence Day was officially declared on July 2nd, 1776. Then they went on to make the holiday official for July the 4th, pretty much as, a means of mocking King George III as the inherent ruler at that particular time. His birthday is July the 4th, King George. Okay, so It makes sense. It gives motive as to why they would change the Independence Day from the 2nd to the 4th. King George III, George William Frederick, born July 4th, 1738 through January 29th, 1820, was King of Britain and Ireland. He was Duke and Prince Elector of Brunswick in the Holy Roman Empire. His life and reign were marked by a series of military conflicts involving his kingdoms, such as Europe, Africa, the Americas, and Asia. So early in King George's reign, Great Britain had defeated France in the 7 Years' War. But however, many British American colonies were soon lost to the American War of Independence. So the Royal Proclamation of 1763 placed a limit upon the westward expansion of the American colonies, okay? Now, the proclamation signed by King George III aimed to divert the expansion of colonial navigation to the northern colonies, okay? This included Nova Scotia, as well as to the south, which included Florida. Now, the proclamation line did not bother the majority, but it was unpopular amongst a group of vocal minority, which resulted in conflict between the colonists and the British government, okay? With the American colonists typically underburdened by British taxes, they felt that it was unfit for them to pay. When actuality, it was just for them to pay, considering they were British subjects and they were not citizens who contributed to the society. Criminal American colonists argued that they had the right to no taxation without representation. In 1765, Grenville introduced the Stamp Act, which levied a stamp duty on every document in the British colonies in North America. So at this time, with all the conflict, King George was deeply disturbed, but his pity was not shared by his inner circle, including his brothers, okay? And he described them as having loose morals, okay? Now, in 1770, it was said that King George's brother, Prince Henry, married a woman that was not fit to be royal bride, meaning this was an individual that was not of royal blood. Someone of royal blood, that's a native citizen, married someone who was of colonial descent, okay? So this woman went by the name of Anne Horton. Now, King George considered her to be someone of a lower social class, okay? So the king insisted that there would be a law to be established that forbid those of royal blood to marry without the consent of the sovereign, okay? And this is to ensure order of the royal family, and it's a political means of creating social order, okay? So the subsequent bill, also known as the Royal Marriages Act of 1772, was soon passed by King George due to his concerns of illegitimate dealings between colonists and sovereigns, okay? Like I said, at this point in time, it was not a legal thing for someone of royal blood to marry outside of their bloodline. Now, another one of King George's brothers, known as Prince William Henry of Gloucester and Edinburgh, revealed that he had secretly been married to Maria Countess Waldegrave, the illegitimate daughter of Sir Edward Walpole, which is a relative of George's political opponents, meaning colonial descent, okay? Okay, so in 1773, what we know as the Boston Tea Party, there was a political and mercantile protest, right, of the American colonists against the pre-existing sovereign British government, okay? And they were upset about not having rights. So these Europeans pretty much took it upon themselves to raid the British ships and overthrow the tea, right? Import of merchandise and resources coming from East India being sent to the American colonies, orders of King George. So this is just showing their rebellion against rule, showing their rebellion against law. Now at this time in Britain, opinions hardened against colonists, okay? Considering all the rebellion, all of the outlaw behavior, okay? Now, it was said that Chatham agreed with the North, right? And they pretty much said that the invasion of the ships in the Boston Tea Party was indeed a criminal act. Meanwhile, Lord North introduces new measures, which were called the Intolerable Acts by colonists, okay? Colonists resisted imposition of direct rule after the Boston Tea Party. Colonists created self-governing provinces. They circumvented the entire British ruling apparatus in each colony by 1774, leading up to 1776. Armed conflict between the British and the colonial military broke out in the battles of Lexington and Concord in April 1775. After petitions for intervention to the crown were ignored, rebel leaders were declared traitors by the crown, which is the royal sovereign government, okay? So their petition was ignored for a reason. Like I said, they were subjects, not citizens. Colonists listed 27 grievances against the British king and legislature while asking for the support of the local populace. Now, ironically, the Custerian statue of King George III was also taken down after the Declaration of Independence. Could this simply be an attempt to disguise or not acknowledge, or to simply just cover up the existence of King George, the identity of King George? What is the true identity of the ruler of Britain at the time of the Declaration of Independence? Now, here I introduce the second most important piece to the story, okay? John Hanson, often depicted as a European Caucasian guy, was one of the foundational pieces to the Declaration of Independence. Now, mind you, he's an indigenous sovereign citizen. Okay, remember, this is all about genetics, nationality, class, rights, social order. Okay, so John Hanson was the first president of the new founded United States of America. He was a merchant and public official during the era of the Revolutionary War. And like I said, he was also one of the main primary contributors financially and patriotically. So Hanson's career in public service began in 1750 when he was appointed sheriff of Charles County. In 1757, John Hanson was elected to represent Charles County of the Lower House General Assembly of Maryland, where he served the next 12 years and also sat in on many important committees. John Hanson was the leading opponent of the 1765 Stamp Act proposed by King George and the British sovereign government in protest against the Townships Act, which was in favor of the colonists. Maryland Proprietary Colony with Hanson aligned itself with the Popular and Country Party, which opposed any expansion of the powers of the proprietary governors. In 1769, John Hanson was a part of a non-importation resolution which boycotted British imports. So when the relations between the 13 colonies and Great Britain became a crisis in 1774, John Hanson was one of Frederick County's leading patriots at that point in time. Okay, John Hanson was one of the major financiers, contributors at that point in time. So in 1779, John Hanson was elected as delegate to the Constitutional Congress after serving a variety of roles in the patriotic cause in Maryland. In 1781, John Hanson signed the Articles of Confederation after Maryland joined the other states in ratification. He died November 15, 1783. okay, in Prince George Manor in Maryland. John Hanson is playing the role of the patriot, and King George is playing the polar oppositional role of the loyalist. Okay, he's for the pre-existing sovereign government, and Hanson is, on the other hand, like a double agent. He's reporting back to Washington and the other colonials, but he's also making it seem like he's in good with King George because he's a brother. Hanson was said to have made gun logs, gunpowder, um, secured prisoners, different things of that nature. It is presumed that he was officially the first president of the United States of America, okay? And he was not Caucasian, he was a Negroid, phenotypical black man. Black Laws Dictionary. Nation. What is nation? Nationality. The difference between colonial and indigenous sovereign citizen. Okay. What is nation? A people or aggregation of men existing in the form of an organized dual society, inhabiting a distinct portion of the earth, speaking the same language, using the same customs, possessing historic continuity, and distinguished from other like groups by racial origins and characteristics, and generally but not necessarily living under the same government and sovereignty. Besides the element of autonomy or self-government, that is, the independence of the community as a whole from the interference of any foreign power in its affairs or any subjection to such power. It is further necessary to the constitution of a nation that it should be an organized dual society that is both governing its own members by regular laws and defining and protecting their rights and duties which attach to it as a constituent member of the family of nations. Black Laws Dictionary. Definition of sovereignty. This is what makes colonials wrong for colonization. Okay? If the land is not yours, it's not inherent to you, you are not a citizen of the original pre-existing society, then you are not sovereign. Okay? Meaning that you don't have rights, okay, to the land or to the resources. Okay? So, what is sovereignty? Black Laws Dictionary. The possession of sovereign power, supreme political authority, paramount control of the Constitution and frame of government, and its administration, the self-sufficient source of political powers from which all specific political power are derived, the international independence of a state combined with the right and power of regulating its internal affairs without foreign dictation. Notice that, foreign dictation. Also, a political society or state which is sovereign and independent. The freedom of a nation has its correlate in the sovereignty of the nation. Political sovereignty is the assertion of self-determinate will of the organic people. And in this, there is the manifestation of its freedom. It is in through the determination of its sovereignty that the order of the nation is constituted and maintained. If a determinate human superior not in habit of obedience to a like superior receive habitual obedience from the bulk of a given society, that determinate superior is sovereign in the society, and the society, including the superior, is a society political and independent. So the difference between a colonist and a native indigenous sovereign citizen is genetics, nationality. Nationality is based upon DNA and genetics. Genetically, there are only two nationalities of humans on the planet. There's parent species, the original parent species of humans, and then there are hybrid subspecies. Okay, so colonists are hybrid subspecies, and native indigenous sovereign citizens are the original parent species of humans. And we know this to be so from the ABO blood group study and the RH study. So you have to understand that colonists are not indigenous peoples. There's a reason why they were subjects, why they were British subjects, why they had to steal, why they had to kill, why they had to do things the wrong way to obtain wealth and fortune versus the indigenous native people who were inherited wealth. They were inherited fortune. They were inherited, knowledge of science and creation and spirituality and these things. Hybrid humans are a new race of humans, okay? And so you have to understand that nationality is genetic, okay? So King George was black, John Hanson was black. They were both on oppositional sides, one fighting for the pre-existing political order, and the other fighting for a new political order in establishing the United States of America. So John Hanson is on the back of the $2 bill, okay? An official print of the Internal Revenue Service, okay? And you notice that he's not a slave. He's surrounded by colonial white men, but he's not wearing slave attire, okay? And that's just showing you that he's somebody of status. He's not just anybody. John Hanson was elected 1781 and died in 1783. So he was only president for 2 years. And when you think about it today, whenever we get a president, that president is to run a full term of at least 4 years, okay? Sometimes 8 years if they run 2 terms, concurrent back to back. So I just thought it was funny after, he played all of the those major roles and the contributions that he made in establishing this new patriotic system in government, that he only ran for 2 years. And right after that, something happened to the man. They say that he died of natural causes, but I highly doubt it. And he was buried in King George Manor in Maryland or whatnot, which is really also kind of ironic because him and King George weren't on the same terms. They was on oppositional sides. But anyway, I just believe they railroaded the brother, used him for what, to establish America, and used him for his sovereign rights and his sovereign, status to establish power and control. And today we're under a new sector of government. It's not the same government that was in control prior to 1776. So even though we celebrate Independence Day and, we think it's a good thing, it's actually the downfall of the indigenous sovereign government, which were melanated people.